All right. Good morning to our West Coast and good afternoon to all other time zones. Thank you all so much for taking time away from your busy schedule to join us for our Beyond Dashboards How AI is Rebuilding Construction Financial Intelligence session. Today, you are going to see firsthand what it means to have AI workflows and agents built specifically for construction, not just generic chatbot plugins. And today, I am joined by my colleagues responsible for making this happen. Portion of the colleagues responsible for making this happen. We have a whole team working hard on this. So let's meet them. Xenia, can you get us started off?
Absolutely. Good afternoon. I'm Laura. I'm a product manager here at ProNovos. I've been here about 2 months, but I spent about 7 years with Procore and Levelset before joining in March. Kevin?
Yeah, and I'm Kevin. I'm the director of product here at ProNovos. Been with the company about 5 years now, which is kind of crazy to think about. And then prior to my time at ProNovos, I actually worked in the construction industry doing project management for about 7 years. So I learned some lessons the hard way about the construction industry before my years at ProNovos.
And we will get back to Xenia. She does have a little one at home. So once that's settled, we'll let Xenia jump in with her introduction. And while we wait for Xenia, um, I want to just kind of briefly introduce this topic and kind of share some background on why we're talking about it today and just some interesting things that we've learned about AI. So, fun fact, well, I guess we're gonna launch a poll. So as I share this, if you all want to tell us, what best describes you, what type of work you're in, and what accounting software you're using, you can certainly do that. So AI, it's new to most of us. However, the first AI chatbot, you guys may not know this. MIT released Eliza back in 1966. So the concept of AI has been around for quite some time. However, the first generative AI, Stability AI, released Stable Diffusion back in August of 2022, which many of you probably didn't hear about. However, the one that I think everyone has heard about was in November of 2022, OpenAI released ChatGPT. And I think it's safe to say that that is what really revolutionized the world of AI for many of us. So, when you think about the construction industry, one thing that I find fascinating is that this is an industry that for many years had been compared to agriculture as some of the lowest adopting industries when it comes to technology. And over the last 5 to 10 years, we've seen this accelerated ramp up of technology in construction, oftentimes creating some fatigue amongst those who are having to implement it. However, now we're at a point where technology is going to change faster than ever with the introduction of AI and using AI into the different products that you all have come to know and love. So you're going to see a lot of transformative things happening in the space over the next couple of years because it's going to give companies like ProNovos the ability to change and adapt to your needs faster than ever. So before we jump in and give you a sneak peek, I'm going to circle back to Xenia. Xenia, you want to quickly introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Xenia. I'm head of design and I've been with ProNovos for, well, way too long, 7 years.
Awesome. Yes, Xenia is employee number 2 with the company. So she has been here from the inception. So she's going to give us some great insight as we show you the sneak peek of how we're rebuilding our financial intelligence platform with AI workflows and agents and what it means um, for those of you that are actually running the construction projects. So what you are going to see, we have just recently rolled out for alpha testing with a few of our power users at ProNovos. We don't have an official launch date for you all yet, but it will be available over the next several weeks. So at the end, if you're curious about this or you want to learn more, or you want to see what this can mean for your company, make sure you indicate that when we ask if you want to see the future of AI. So one thing we're curious about is in regards to how you're working today. So, what takes the most time currently from a financial reporting process for you in your day-to-day activities? So we're going to launch this poll now. Is it, pulling data from multiple systems? Is it manually building or updating your reports? Is it getting answers to project cost questions? Maybe it's explaining variances to project managers, or it could be all of the above, or nothing on this list. Kevin, you got any guesses as a former project manager of what they might say?
I have a feeling it's going to be all of the above that I think all of these can be pretty painful and time consuming in a lot of different ways.
All right. Well, shall we look at the results and see if you were correct?
Let's see it.
And
There you
Kevin's
go.
really good at playing games and trivia, and so here he is again. He is correct. The majority of you really have that pressure point around all of the above, but followed by a close, like manually building and updating reports as the second highest pain point.
Yeah.
So,
And what I think is interesting here, Sam, is you see a lot of just kind of it's a lot of time spent just like actually getting the information and aggregating. And if you
mhm.
look at the one that actually has no responses, explaining variances to project managers, in some ways you would think that'd be the most important, right? Like spending time understanding why projects are going over budget or under budget. But we spend so much time pulling data, building reports, asking questions, getting answers that we're not actually spending the time to understand what's driving those variances on projects. It's kind of interesting to see.
I completely agree with you. And in the conversations that we've had with our clients and prospects, it's they don't have time to do that high level thinking that they wish they could do. So
Mhm.
hopefully today, you all will see how we're going to give you some of that time back, so that way you can do those things that you wish you had more time to do. So Xenia, you being employee number two with the company, I'm curious to know from your perspective what has changed since the inception of ProNovos.
Yeah, and God, cue in the video with Rose from Titanic saying, God, it's been 83 years when she's, at the beginning of the movie, sitting in the submersible. And this webinar is not going to be quite as long as the Titanic movie, but if you guys stick around, we can absolutely argue whether she could have fit on that door with Jack. But essentially, what has changed is the introduction of AI, right? So for the longest time, the best that software could do, including us, was give users dashboards, right? And it was good enough for a while. The problem with dashboards is that they're static. There's not much action that you can take from there. Yeah, there are like some very great insights that you see. There is, their charts, their KPIs, numbers, so all of that information that kind of looks scattered throughout the place in your accounting system, what we're able to pull into our solution and present it in a more digestible format. Now, the problem with that is that still that puts a lot of work into a contractor to actually look at that information and analyze that. And so what has changed, before I actually answer the question, I will present to you the inspiration for the change. I'll present to you the best user interface ever known to humanity. And here it is. This is not an error right now. There is this notion in design, in product design, that the best user interface is no user interface. And for me as a designer, every time I have to ask a user to learn a new solution, to learn how to use a product, that's a failure. Because that is still an obstacle for the user in the way for them to actually get the insights that they want to get or complete an action that they want to complete. So that's what was driving the rebuild that we're about to show here. We want to remove as many obstacles on users' way in order to actually let them achieve what they would like to achieve in the least amount of time possible. And with that, I think that we can just go straight on the solution, just so that I'm not talking over blank screen. Although that was a nice piece of change of pace for a while. So what we did, we introduced something called Nova. Kind of rhymes nicely with ProNovos. But essentially that will be kind of it is an actual star, so it will be the North Star that will guide users now throughout the platform. So Nova can provide any insights into any financials, into any parts of the business. And like I said, the best UI is no UI. You can do it from anywhere. So in the previous version of the product, if you wanted to look at your receivables, you would have to go into AR collections module. If you wanted to look at payables, you would have to navigate there. Anything at the project level, you have to go and find that information. So, and if you're looking at multiple parts of your business in the same session, that's just a lot of time kind of navigating the product, right? So what we're thinking is, okay, well, I just want to look at my outstanding invoices. So I come in here and I'm saying, okay, show me my oldest aging invoices. And I'm doing it from just the overview page. I don't have to go into receivables module. So, and here it is. We already have the insight into the oldest aging invoices. All of them have been aging for over 90 days. So normally well, I wouldn't call anybody out here, but in some of the other solutions out there, that's it, right? So whenever products release AI, it just kind of feels a little bit like bolted on top. You can ask a question, get your answer, but that's it. There's absolutely nowhere you can go from there. Well, from here, you can actually take an action here. So we can say, okay, this Griffith company, and I'm gonna copy their name. Oh. So I can say, draft a follow-up email. And here it is. So I asked Nova to draft a follow-up email for me. What AI obviously is very, very good at is actually text because it's a language model. So I now don't have to think about, what exactly do I tell them. I can just pick tone of voice that I would like to use in that email. So this invoice has been pending for 260 days. So we probably want to be very urgent.
Better be urgent, yeah.
Yeah, they better hurry up. So, and here it is. I just click generate email. It's already here, and you can edit any part of the email. You can delete whatever parts you want. And if you want to be super urgent, you can say, hey, I would, well, if I could spell, I would like to get paid tomorrow. Thank you very much. And that's it. And then from here, you can click who it goes to, and it'll be sent. And that is your action that you wouldn't, well, you obviously would have been able to do without Nova. But right now, because the visibility was provided into what was the oldest aging invoice, again, we took that information, we're able to actually put an action behind it. And that's what has changed since ProNovos 1.0.
And I think that's the key part there. It's the action, right? And I think Zena and I have had a lot of discussions over the last year. Basically, ever since ChatGPT came out, it's just like, hey, what can you actually do with AI? And we always had kind of this frustration that what you would see a lot of solutions would be kind of like a gimmicky chatbot where you could say, hey, tell me this or that. And like, yes, that provided some value. But really, the reason you're going to that chatbot or you're asking a question is because you're looking for some insight to take action on. And that's really what we're trying to do with this new solution here. It's not only trying to surface AI in terms of how can you get those insights faster, but once you get that insight, what's that next action that you want to take? And how can we help you move you through that? Because that's where the real unlock from AI comes from. It's not just kind of like this, bells and whistle, like, ooh, I can ask it a fancy question. It's helping you actually kind of navigate through your workflows and make your life easier and follow up on tasks.
I know that there's a big concern around AI replacing jobs, but when I look at something like this, could you restructure your business model if you're not finding the talent you need? Absolutely. However, what this does is this frees up your team. So a lot of these mundane, time-consuming tasks, it frees them up to have higher level thinking. So the way in which their brains should be looking at things, they often can't because as we talked about earlier, we're spending so much time assembling and gathering and hunting things down that we don't actually have the time to use our critical thinking skills to evaluate these projects. So you could look at this from a business perspective as a way to free up your staff so that way they are not so heavily inundated with manual work. Or you could look at it as if you are in a, hiring shortage or you can't find the right talent. You can bridge that gap until you could find the right person by leveraging AI.
Yeah, I love that framing, Sam, because it is something that I always felt when I worked in the construction industry is most people are pretty good at their jobs. They know what they're doing, and it's more just a question of like, do they have the time to do it? And like that's usually when you see corners getting cut or things not being executed the way they need to. It's not out of sloppiness. It's because they literally do not have the time. And can AI basically be that tool that kind of takes care of some of those lower hanging fruit that allows you to work more efficiently? So all the things that you know you should be doing in your job but never have the time to get to, you can get to in a more manageable way.
Good. So, Xenia, I know you mentioned the language model, and the language model is really good for text, but what about the people who really like the visuals? That's one thing our solution's been known for is the data visualization. So, how is this going to impact Nova?
Oh, I love visuals. I'm a designer, so you're speaking my language right now. But the visuals are still there. And I think that's what's great about the rebuild is that everything that ProNovos used to have is still here. In fact, if I do say so myself, it's improved. It's just we now have more insights, kind of alluding back to the title of the webinar, beyond the dashboard, right? So insights that live on top. And this is what we were talking about. This is something that would provide those actions. But there is still time and place for the visuals. Like I said, they're still here. And the addition about the visuals is that, sometimes you look at them and you still would like to, I don't know, get clarification around, well, what does a particular number mean? What does a particular chart mean? Like, for example, I'm looking at, I don't know, percent complete, and I want to say, well, I'm not exactly sure what you're trying to say here, or what is the, I don't know, calculation used for projected profit. Well, I can ask again Nova about any chart on the page, any particular, number here, and it would know exactly what we're talking about. So with AI, my personal frustration is when I have to, go into like a chatbot and use tons and tons of words to just describe exactly what I'm talking about. Like if I was just gonna come in here and, say, okay, well, tell me about, I don't know, contract value for project 25001 Centerpoint Energy Plaza. That's a lot of words. I don't like typing. English is not my first language. I'm not good at typing. So what I want to do is I just want to hover over a particular element, particular project, and ask directly about that. So if I was gonna do that, I can, select this element here and then, ask any question about this number or again about this project.
And
I
what I
like
think
that.
is really
Go ahead,
cool
Kevin.
here is that I think what we see a lot among construction professionals, especially the project managers, is they don't necessarily come from that financial background. Either they came up through the field or they come from an engineering background, and they got into construction not because they love finance and accounting. They got into construction because they like building things, but they're still the ones that have their hands closest to what's going to drive the financial success of a project. And having this ability where not only do they have access to all the numbers, but then also a tool to help them understand the numbers, not only in terms of like the history of what's making up that number, but also the calculation of how it's actually being calculated and what story is that telling you on the project. I think it's a really good way to help kind of contextualize what previous may have just been a number on a page to something meaningful that's telling you about the job.
I agree. And I think building on that, Kevin, too, one thing that I speak to construction professionals about is bridging the generational divide. So this time in society, we're seeing lots of baby boomers retiring and, early Gen Xers. So you're getting a lot of new people into the industry. And we know how nuanced construction financial management
Yeah.
is. So if you have a project accountant right out of college, chances are a lot of this stuff is going to be foreign to them that they didn't learn in school. So this is a really great tool too to help bridge that learning gap to get your team up to speed a lot faster.
Oh, I think that's spot on. And it's not like, people are smart, right? It's not like they need like something to hold their hand. It's more just like, constructions, it's in a lot of ways that the financials done, it's a little niche. It's a little different than every other industry. And, to your point, Sam, take that 25-year-old right out of college. They might be the smartest guy out there or the smartest gal out there, but go ask them to explain over under billions if they've never seen that concept before. And I'm sure they're going to scratch their head. So there's just things like that it takes time to get used to, and most of us that have spent a lot of time in the industry can kind of start to take that for granted. Where it's just like, hey, I'm so used to what these terms mean. Where if you're encountering them for the first time, it can still be intimidating and understanding what it is that it's actually telling you.
Agreed. And so, Kevin, thinking about very smart individuals, what is stopping a contractor from, let's say, going to ChatGPT, Grok, Claude, Gemini, any of the other AI platforms out there, from asking questions about their data or uploading their spreadsheets?
Yeah, so I think what you get here is this one, it's like we're connected to your data. So when you ask a question, it's going to basically be referencing all of your own data. So you're not having to upload anything to any of these other platforms. But that's not really the important part there. What's really important there is that we can leverage something that's called tools. And tools is basically a way that you teach the AI how to access the data so it doesn't hallucinate. And this is always the fear with AI. It's like, hey, if I ask it a question on, what are my outstanding AR invoices? Am I actually going to get the right result, or is it going to kind of give me some bogus invoice out there? And what a lot of the AI models have figured out is the way you actually solve this is by giving the AI agent a tool. So very simplistic example, if you think way back to the first time you used ChatGPT and you asked it what 2 + 2 was, 3 years ago, it may have come back and said like it's 5 or 3, or maybe it got it right and said it was 4. But what they actually did to teach ChatGPT to get the math question right all the time was not actually teach it arithmetic. It basically taught us like, hey, if somebody asks you a math question, go grab a calculator, plug it into the calculator, and get the result from there. And that's how they basically solved, hey, now when you put in 2 + 2 in a ChatGPT, it's always going to spit out 4 because the AI is leveraging a tool. What we've done with Nova is basically recreate that tool set, but for construction financials. So if you ask, hey, what are my job costs on the project? We're not relying on the AI to basically go and figure out how to pull your job costs. We're saying, hey, if somebody asks about job costs, here's how you go pull the data. Here's how you get the right result. And I don't know if you still have that outstanding AR chat pulled up, but I can show you guys a quick example of what one of those tools is.
I don't, but I can
Let's,
again.
yeah. And so what we've basically done is we've kind of said, okay, based on the time that we've spent talking to industry experts, talking to contractors, what do we need to build in that tool set, in that tool bag? So when you ask questions, that we're confident that it's always going to get the right result. And that's really the benefit of using a system like ProNovos or Nova through ProNovos rather than a Claude or a ChatGPT, is that you can always be very confident that the answers you're going to get are going to use those tools to give you the right answer. So if you kind of want to see right there where it says list AR invoices, that's an example of a tool where basically it says, hey, we asked a question about AR. Here's a tool that I was taught how to use at the AI. I'm now going to go use that tool. So when I list out these AR invoices, I can guarantee that these are actual invoices and I don't have to worry that it's something that's been hallucinated.
So, Kevin, these insights are obviously great, but we talked about action, right? So, like, what would you do with that?
Yeah, and it gets back to kind of what Zena was alluding to at the very beginning is if you think about a lot of what we've done in the past around dashboards or reporting, that's all a very passive tool. Yes, this is really good data, but what do I actually do? What's the action I want to take based on that? And that's really what we're trying to do here. It's kind of this two-step process with AI, right? It's like one, you can get those insights way faster, right? I can ask, hey, what are my outstanding invoices? I get my list of outstanding invoices. But then I want to take that action. And, Zena gave us one of those examples of, all right, I want to send that email. And that's the other part of the AI. Yes, we're building the tools that will give you the insights to the questions you're asking. But then once you get those insights, what we're building is what's called agentic workflows, which basically says, okay, once I have that insight, now actually go take an action based on that. So it can be everything from I'm going to go send an email out to my client to understand when I'm going to get or to follow up on it to see when I'm going to get paid. It might be analyzing a contract to pull out all of the relevant terms. It might be analyzing the job costs on a project to update the forecast amount. There are all these different workflows that we're able to build that basically we can say based on that insight you get, what's the thing you want to do next? And now can we enable the AI agent to go do it for you?
It's fascinating. We've talked about a couple of different individuals who we see using our solution. So, Laura, I want to turn it over to you. Who do you see as the different type of users who would benefit from using Nova?
Yeah, you've heard us mention project managers specifically, and then I'd also say on even keel are the finance teams. I mean, both alike, both equally. We've worked to enable with our AI workflows and these actions. So for example, Xenia, I don't know if you wanted to pull up the AI workflows page, but the workflows, kind of like Kevin was saying, are like the choreography. The tool is like we've taught the AI to throw a football, for example. Not really, but the choreography is the play. And so the workflows here are kind of like those extended plays or that choreography that can help reduce the friction and time and back and forth and make work that much easier because of the appropriate like training and direction that it has. So taking a look here, we have I'm just going top down. We have like the monthly forecast workflows, scope of work, material list extraction and daily report extraction. You've seen the follow-up emails, suggested payment dates, cost forecast submission. I mean, there's an entire toolbox and growing of things that you can do. And you even see like column builders and things like that. There's contract analysis. So the idea is that not only are you is there action and or understanding, but there's also kind of like this comprehensive enablement. Like you don't necessarily have to know how to use ProNovos to get the work done. Nova knows how to do it, and can teach you. So that's what's really cool about these AI workflows and the way they enable finance teams, project managers alike, anyone in between to accomplish any of these things with that reduced friction and reduced time.
And one audience we didn't talk about, but I think is, just as important is the leadership team. I mean, oftentimes we're hearing, the CEO has a question, at 10 o'clock at night, he's shooting off emails, wanting to know where a project stands or why are margins dwindling or what can we expect from a cash flow perspective next week? Can we make payroll? And now that CEO or anybody on the executive team has the ability to pop in and ask Nova that question and get the answers they're looking for, correct?
That's true. Yeah, you don't have to fumble through a sheet or find the right dashboard to find the information. You can just ask Nova, and Nova knows.
And if this is something where, you're sitting here listening to us talking and you've just desperately wanted to create a culture of autonomy, but you realize that you've had so many different technologies and things are siloed and you have to get through other gatekeepers in order to get the information, this is going to give your team an entirely new set of skills that they're going to be able to work from, which creates autonomy at the end of the day. So if that's important to you from a cultural perspective, this is the type of tool that you should be looking at, whether it's with ProNovos or if somebody else comes after us. But I'm telling you right now, like this is going to be the future of how we work. And those individuals coming out of college that are graduating, they're going to have a higher expectation. So before it was the expectation was you're not going to be working in Excel, you're going to have some sort of a technology for me to use. And now it's not going to just be you have a technology for me to use, but does your technology have AI workflows and agents for me to leverage?
Yeah, and I think that's a really important thing to point out there, Sam, is you kind of alluded to at the very beginning. There is always this fear of like, oh, AI is going to come take my job. And I think what we see a lot is not actually it's taking your job. In a lot of ways, it's empowering you to do your job even better while making your life a little bit easier. So, Zena, if you want to scroll up, I'll call out one of the workflows we've worked on that I think is a good example of that is that daily report extraction. And that's basically an AI tool that basically allows the superintendent or foreman just to dictate what they got done on the job site. So you can just kind of talk into the AI agent. It will record it, transcribe it, and then populate the daily report for them. And that's a really good example of, not only is that making that process a lot easier for the foreman and superintendent, because that's probably the last thing they want to do after a busy day on the site is sit down and fill out a daily report, but it's also empowering them to really tell what's going on the job site. I mean, it's much easier to kind of talk off the cuff in terms of just, a couple minutes of, hey, here's everything that happened, then to sit down and type it all out. So you're empowering them to give you kind of a more full picture of what's happening on the job site. And because they're providing you more detail and you're getting better daily reports, you can then leverage that information where then you can say, okay, when I go and update my cost forecast, I can now have the AI agent not only look at the job costs, but I can pull the daily reports from the foreman and the superintendent. And because those daily reports are so much more rich because they were able to use AI tools to basically dictate everything they did on the job site, you start to get this virtuous cycle where it's basically kind of empowering everyone to kind of do their job in a richer and a more streamlined fashion, where one kind of feeds into the next and they're getting better information at each step in the chain.
I think also another important thing to add here is that we have all this, super robust AI functionality. Now, we're not forcing anyone to use it, right? There's still sometimes it just doesn't make sense to use AI for something that is genuinely easier and faster to do manually. We do have options for, chart builder or add a new KPI, add a new column in the whip. Now that is the functionality that has always existed in ProNovos, what we keep calling 1.0, in the old product. And we just now give users that choice, whether you would like and, utilize our already extensive library of all the different KPIs and charts you can pull from, or do you have, something out of the box that you would like to get built that normally would have taken, well, maybe weeks if you wanted to add, I don't know, a new formula or like change a calculation or, I don't know, just add any kind of a data into your, let's say, web report that we just didn't have already in the library. Well, now you can come in there and ask Nova, and you would have that chart or KPI within minutes.
And I see we have this workflow for cost forecast. So Kevin, I want you to put your PM hat back on and thinking about as a PM, when you would do your cost forecast, what were some of those things you would have to do? How long would it take you? And then how long would it take you to do that if you had Nova?
Yeah, so if I think back to what I used to do as a project manager, there's basically like two parts to that you're considering when you're updating your cost forecast, right? One's like, what is the actual date on the project? Tell me, what is my budget? What are my costs? What are my change orders? What are my open commitments? I need to consider all that. But then I basically need to marry it up with what is kind of the contextual information on this project. What are the conversations I've had with my client? What are the conversations I've had with my team in the field? When I walk the job site, what issues do I see? What's coming back in the daily reports? What are outstanding in RFIs? And you basically have these two buckets of information you're trying to consider. There's the structured data, which is basically all of the financial information that exists in a table in a column somewhere that you could pull up in Excel. And then there's all that unstructured data that basically is text or exists in forms. Now, historically, what you would have to do when you were doing your cost forecast is you could basically pull the structured data, but then you would have to kind of very manually kind of update it from your own kind of knowledge, basically everything that is that unstructured data. What you can do with AI is basically you can have the AI agent consider both of it. So it can look at the job cost, it can look at all that unstructured data, what are the notes on the project? Let me look at the photos. Are there any outstanding RFIs? And then it can update the forecast for you based on, okay, I've looked at my job cost, I've looked at the daily reports and the photos. Here's the percent complete I think I am on this line item. Now, it's not going to be perfect. You still need to be involved in it. You still need to review it, but it's basically cutting down a lot of that kind of research and thought to make it a little bit more streamlined, to take something that could have been a couple hours to get to an accurate forecast on a project to something that you can do in a matter of minutes, because the AI agent is basically doing a lot of the heavy lifting for you and basically pulling those two sources of information that you need.
Man, so it seems like Nova, you're essentially giving your employees all their own personal assistant.
That's the goal, right? Yeah.
Awesome. So let's kind of talk about security, Kevin. So we have this amazing system. There's lots of projects. Obviously, not everybody should have access to everything. So how have we set this up to prevent users from asking questions about things that they should not be asking questions about?
Yeah, so this whenever you have financial data, I mean that's always going to be a concern is how you actually securing it. How do you make sure the project engineer on this project doesn't accidentally get, payroll information for the whole company. And that's something that we had solved in kind of the traditional product where basically, each financial module, each report, each dashboard had basically permission settings on it where you could basically say, hey, in order to access this report, you need to basically be of this role. You need to be granted permission. Well, what we've done is because we're leveraging those tools that I mentioned earlier, what we can do is basically we can add security on those tools as well. So if I say, hey, give me the job cost for this project, well, it's going to check two things before it returns that. One, it's going to say, hey, do you actually have access to this project? And two, do you actually have access to the job cost module? And if you don't have those two levels of security, then it's not going to give you a result. So again, it's one of the benefits to using something more like Nova, where we kind of built in kind of some of these guardrails into the system. So it's not a free for all for the AI, that it's kind of structured to make sure that we can put in these levels of security to make sure somebody doesn't ask something that they shouldn't be able to access.
Hmm. Well, that's great to hear that we've thought about that, and hopefully that will alleviate some of our viewers' concerns about giving everybody access to everything. So we're going to launch a final poll, and then the team is going to share some final takeaways for you. So the final poll is, if you're at all curious with what we are building here at ProNovos and you would like to see more, go ahead and select yes. It'll just be a meeting with our team to kind of do a more in-depth demo. And one thing that we do offer are data syncs. So if you would like to see this with your data, we could evolve to that in the conversation. But final takeaways. So, if you have to give one piece of advice to those construction leaders listening today, to help them figure out like how AI is going to fit into their tech stack, what would it be? So, Laura, let's start with you.
Yeah, I mean, you heard me talk about the choreography, the play of it all. So start by looking at things in your work life that are the most expensive operationally and personally, the things that create the most friction and tension, and see if you can't start there. And see if you can't collapse that into a smaller workflow with less friction, less tension, and kind of open up that space for you to use your brain for what you want to use it for.
Awesome. Senior?
Well, I think actually mine kind of overlaps with what Laura just said. I've been well, I wouldn't say the biggest, but a big non-believer for a while. And I would just say pick one workflow, just one thing to try with AI and see how it does. And like we all said earlier, sometimes it truly doesn't make sense to use AI for something, and you probably don't want to use it for everything, but for things like, I don't know, automating emails that you don't have to write them, that is a good place to start.
Kevin?
Yeah, I would say just experiment. I mean, this is still new. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, I think Sam said ChatGPT came out in 2022. If you want to consider that the kickoff of the AI era, we're only 3 years into it. It's still early days. What things look like today is probably going to be very different than what it looks like 5 years from now. But just keep experimenting with it, because you might even kind of look at something today and be like, you know what, it's not good enough. And you look at it 3 months from now, you go, you know what, it's not good enough. It's not good enough. And then one day it's going to be good enough. And you just want to make sure you don't get caught flat-footed, that you're kind of keeping up on what's out there, what some of the advancements are, what the capabilities are. Because the other thing that I would add on to what Zenia and Lauren said is, yes, look at those workflows that take you a lot of time, that are easy to automate, but also consider in your business, what are the types of things you wish you could do but are just like, man, that'd just be way too labor intensive to do, or way too time intensive, or like we would have to hire an army of 50 interns to basically accomplish this thing. What are those types of things that you wish you could do, but you just don't have the resources to do because it's unmanageable? those are the tend to be the type of things that lend themselves really good to a new AI kind of workflow. So experiment, kind of think differently about things, because even if it's not right today, chances are someday in the future it will be.
And my advice is don't let the tech fatigue overwhelm you. I've been in this space since 2019, and I know that construction has been rapidly, adopting new technologies and growing to kind of, not be such a laggard industry in technology. So for those of you that are feeling like you're inundated with technology, or you've implemented too many things, or too many things are going on and you just don't want to add another system, I really do encourage you to take some of these demo calls and just see what's out there, because this could consolidate tech that you already have. Might make your life easier, streamline things. So highly encourage all of you to, watch the videos, do the demo calls. And if you're concerned with salespeople harassing you, one thing our company does very well is set your expectation. Let us know, hey, I am just looking, I'm browsing, I'm not ready to make a decision. And that's true for all technology companies, is just be very clear in your expectations early on in that call. And if they're not going to respect those boundaries, it's probably a good indicator of the type of partner they're going to be with you in your business. So we do have a couple of minutes. So Kevin, feel free to close that poll. If anybody has any questions, you can use the chat functionality or that QA button. So whatever you want to know, again, this team is obsessed with technology. I think they may be spending too much time with AI stuff, but if there's anything that you want to know from our team regarding AI or ProNovos in general, now is the time to ask those questions. And Kevin, while we wait, I know that we've showed this to a few of our clients. Were there any questions that they had that you feel would be worthy of sharing with the audience?
Um, I think the biggest thing is, again, that kind of thinking about like insight to action. And I think that's kind of the thing that even in some very preliminary conversations we've had with people, new ideas come out of that. It's just kind of like, hey, can we use this to basically automatically create our submittals on projects? Or can we use it to remind foremen or superintendents to fill out their daily reports if they missed a day like that? Things like that, I think, are always interesting to hear. So if there's something that you guys have had a thought that you're like, hey, it'd be really cool if AI could do this, and you haven't found kind of the right forum to kind of bring that up, we love hearing these ideas. So even if you want to reach out to us, not because you're necessarily interested in what we're doing today, but because you have an idea that might lend itself really well to an AI agentic workflow, we'd love to discuss it.
And Kevin, we do have a question from Susan. She said, what is the added cost if you already have ProNovos?
Yeah, so that is something that we are still working on. Like Sam mentioned, this is still kind of in the testing stages. We will probably be rolling it out towards the end of Q2. But if you are an existing ProNovos client, it will at least have some, or the new platform will have at least a version of it that you can kind of use within your existing subscription.
And really, I think the only added cost would be the usage of the AI agents and workflows, correct?
Correct. Yeah. And that's if you have a subscription with ProNovos, some of that AI usage will be included as part of your subscription. And then if you love the tools and you kind of go through that AI usage faster than what's in the allotment there, then you'd be able to kind of re-up and purchase additional usage.
Any of our current clients on the call, you will be hearing from our team with more information once we get closer to rolling this out to everybody on a larger scale. But great question, Susan. Thank you. Give it another couple of seconds here to see if anybody pops in. But yeah, any questions that you have, and even if it's not about our solution, just in AI in general, feel free to ask the team. Well, I'm not seeing anybody asking any more questions. So we're right at time. So thank you all so much for joining us. We are very excited for what the future holds. And you will be hearing from us very soon when this is being rolled out to a larger group. So stay tuned.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you.